Welcome to Simplify to Scale, a show dedicated to helping you scale a high impact and high profit business that you love without all of the complexity and chaos that can keep you trapped in the day-to-day. I'm your host, Krista Grasso, and with decades of scaling experience, I know what actually works and what's just hype. So if you are done with all of the one-size-fits-all scaling advice and all of the overnight success promises, and instead you want proven practical strategies that will help you simplify operations, elevate your leadership, amplify profits, and scale sustainably, let's dive in and get started. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Simplify to Scale show. Today, we're going to be continuing our series of what it's going to take for success and scale as we go into the new year. And for today's topic, I want to talk about something that's very top of mind for people right now, and that's planning. Because if you think about where we are in the year, you and your team are probably starting to get really clear, or at least trying to get really clear on what you're going to be focused on next year. You might be looking at your team and looking at, do you need to make changes? You might be looking at what investments you need to make, maybe things that you want to invest in for some of the specials that are probably coming up for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, which is going on right now. If you're listening to this when this episode is released, you might be looking at investments you want to make to minimize some of your tax liabilities before the end of the year, or things that you're trying to budget for and plan for as you go into next year. You're also probably trying to align on what is it that you want to do next year? What are your financial targets? What are the big goals that you have? What are the things that you need to either be creating space for, changing, or doubling down on? Right? This is the time of year to be thinking about a lot of these things. This is why I'm hosting a one-day strategic planning retreat to do this coming up in December, right? So in today's episode, what I want to talk about is how you want to be thinking about planning as you're looking forward to the next year, and what's a little bit different right now than where it has been in prior years. Because I think that what you do now to set yourself up for next year is going to have a very big influence on the type of results that you're going to see and just how hard you and your team have to work to get those results, which obviously we want to be trying to optimize and maximize the results that you get and minimize the amount of effort or wasted effort that's going into it. So first things first, I'm going to introduce you to a few concepts that I teach in my certification programs that are very specific to planning. Some of these I've talked about on past episodes of the podcast. Some are new here, so pay attention. And if you hear me talk about something that sounds familiar, know that I'm going to be adding some extra layers to things that I think are really important for you to be thinking about as you look forward to next year, and really to keep in mind anytime you do planning moving forward. So first things first, planning looks different in different seasons and cycles of business. This is one I have mentioned on the podcast before. And most people approach planning very much as a one-size-fits-all, one approach fits all. And that couldn't be any further from the truth. First of all, if you are planning as a team of one, you, yourself, and I, or a small team, and that team is comprised of fractionals and freelancers and consultants, whether you have a team of full-time employees, whether you have a larger organization and you have teams of teams, well, the way that you're going to approach planning is going to look a little different in each of those scenarios. But also, when you are in a very predictive place in your business, when you know precisely what you're going to do, you're in a season where things are very clear, you already know, you have a lot of confidence that you're going to do A and you're going to get result B. You've done it over and over again, things work fairly predictably, and you're more just mapping out really what you want the year to look like, and you're putting your launch dates on the calendar, and you're really more pretty predictably approaching things. You can start to map things out further into the future because you are going to have a level of confidence that you would not normally have in doing that because of the clarity you have around what you're going to do and the types of results you're going to see based on past experience, proven past performance. This year, that is not true for most businesses. There are very few businesses that I know that that is true for. And so when you are in a period, which is more of an experimentation period, which is where a lot of businesses are right now, you might know what you're selling. You might not. You might know what your conversion rates are. Again, you might not. The things that were working 2 years ago, stopped working a year ago, changed again, are continuing to change. So how much confidence do you have in the results that you're going to get in the things that you're going to do? And do you even know what things you're going to do? Do you even know what you're selling? Do you know how you're going to sell it? Do you have all that dialed in? If the answer is absolutely not, or I'm not sure, or I think so, but I really need to figure it out, we need to try it, we need to fine tune it, then you are in the same period that most businesses are in right now. And that is much more of a cycle of experimentation. This is when you may have some level of clarity, but you don't have that same level of clarity and confidence as you have in different seasons of business. And the very last thing that you want to do when you are in this type of season and cycle in business is go in and plan too much detail too far in advance. You need to be more agile. You need to be more adaptive. You need to have space to be able to make changes based on what you're learning, to be able to pivot things, because the market may continue to change. Your clients, your buyers may tell you something that you're not thinking of today, that shifts how you position something, that shifts how you package something, that shifts how you deliver something. Right? There's a lot of signals and patterns that we're listening to, that we're paying attention to, that are influencing some of what we're doing, because a lot of businesses aren't entirely sure what exactly is going to work or what those conversion rates are going to be, given the more discerning, slower buying cycles that we're seeing. So first things first, do not, under any circumstances, go into next year with a detailed plan. And I am telling you that as someone who fully believes in the power of strategic planning, who has an entire lean strategic planning framework, and who got her start as a project manager and has been doing this for decades now. So planning, still very important. We're going to talk about what that looks like. If you'd like to do it together, I invite you to join me for the one-day strategic planning retreat. It's coming up on December 16th. We're going to spend a whole day together, and we are going to strategically plan for next year. But what we are not going to do is have you create a detailed step-by-step plan for the entire year. Anyone who tells you that's what you need, anyone who tries to sell you to do that, please run screaming, because you will waste a whole lot of time and you will be wildly disappointed probably by the time the middle of January hits, when you realize that all that time and all that precision that you put in place that you thought was going to take you where you wanted to go is no longer valid, and you have to throw it all out. So what do you do instead? How do you plan when you can't plan to that same level of detail, when there is such a high degree of experimentation and uncertainty, and you're kind of building the plane while you're flying it, no matter how many years or decades you've been in business, and you need to be able to account for that, but you also can't go into the year flying blind. You need to know what's happening, and you need to have some idea of what you need and whether or not the financial targets that you're setting and the projections that you're putting in place, if they're even realistic, and how to achieve them. Well, this is where we're going to get into some of the different types of planning. So we already aligned on the fact that predictive planning is not going to be for you. Predictive planning, meaning that very detailed plan where you look ahead at the entire year. I'm going to say that that almost never works. It's very rare that that works, but I have seen those periods of high confidence, high clarity, where it can work pretty well as good scaffolding for the year. Too much detail always ends up being waste in a business. So here are the different types of frameworks that fit a more adaptive planning cycle. This is my framework called Lean Strategic Planning. It is designed intentionally to be adaptive. And what we do is a combination of three different types of planning. There's visionary planning, there's strategic planning, and there's just-in-time planning. It's important to understand the distinction between these and which ones you're involved in, depending on what your role is in the business. So if you are listening as the visionary founder, visionary planning is going to be incredibly important to you. If you are the right hand in the business, the one who takes the vision and makes things happen, strategic planning is going to be very important to you. And depending on the level of which you're at in the business and who else is on the team, you may also have a heavy part in just-in-time planning. So let me break them down at a very high level. So visionary planning, this is for you if you are the visionary founder. This is very much that long-term, future-looking, directional planning. This is truly about vision. It's about dream. It's about the role that you want to have in the business. It's about your rich, fulfilled life. It's about the type of impact that you want to make. It's all of those big dreams and goals that you have for the business. This is you allowing yourself to think really big, to set that big, bold vision, to look to the future and say, what do we want to be known for? What type of impact do we want to make? What kind of profit do we want to be generating? And what type of business do we want to have, right? What does the future state look like? That's that more visionary, long-term directional planning. And that is what you, as the visionary founder of the business, does and does holistically. I've talked about this previously. You don't want to pull people into your visioning too early. You want to pull people in to be able to help make that real, but you want to do it after you have clarity on what that vision looks like. Now, once you know longer term where you want to take things, you do want to look at the next year. And so if we're looking at 2026 specifically, what does a wildly successful 2026 look like for you? Don't get into any of the how, don't get into any of the when, don't get into the specifics of it, but let's pretend that you and I are meeting. We're having coffee together. It's January 1st, 2027, and we're talking about how 2026 was the most successful, most amazing, most magical, most all of the things year you have ever had in your business. And it surprised you in ways that you could not even have almost imagined. It was everything you wanted and more. What does that look like? What would have had to have been true for that to happen? And I want you to think beyond your financial targets, which of course you're going to set. I want you to think beyond business milestones, which of course you're going to set as in like those big achievements and things that you want in the business. But I want you to think about you. How did you feel? How did you show up? How were you able to spend your time? Who did you get to spend your time with? What does it look like for you to have this year be a wildly successful, incredible year that is like top of the game, so super excited, can't wait to try to repeat it or even take it one step further as you look to the future, right? Start in that place and then start to look at, okay, now that I have this idea of what that would be, what do I actually want for the vision for this year? That, my friend, is going to be input to strategic planning, and that is where your right-hand person is going to come into play. That is where the person who is going to support you and who actually takes those beautiful ideas and visions and dreams that you have and makes them a reality is going to come in. This is where they're going to understand where you want to go and take things. And they're going to be able to say, all right, let's take a look at this and build a strategic roadmap for the year. Let's look quarter by quarter and say, roughly, what does this look like? If you set a goal of, let's say, $1 million for the year, or maybe it's $5 million for the year, whatever your target is financially. And then you look at maybe as part of that, you have a book launch coming up, or maybe you are launching or rebranding your podcast. Maybe you're adding on a new offer in your business, right? As you start to frame out what some of those things are that you're going to be having, they can start to look at that and actually map it and say, all right, based on this financial target and where we want to go, based on these core pieces, we've got this team, we've got these offers. Here's kind of the landscape of what the business looks like. Well, here's what we might want to be focused on when. And that's when they're going to start to frame out at a high level what the year looks like. Now, here's the key. What you want to walk away with from a strategic plan perspective when you look at the year is you want a strategic roadmap. You want something that is directional and that when you look at it actually will make it possible to achieve the financial targets that you've set. This is not a concrete plan. This is not a detailed what we're going to be doing on Thursday, October something a year from now, right? You don't want to get to that level of granularity, but you do want to know in Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, we're going to do 2 launches per quarter. Maybe you have open cart and you enroll people all the time. Whatever your business model looks like, right? You're going to have some idea of the structure of what might happen. What you're not going to know is how. Maybe you don't know what the conversion event is yet. Maybe you want to experiment with different conversion events and see what lands. Maybe you have your signature offer and it's great. You know how many people you want to enroll in it, but you recognize that you need a gateway offer. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to the episode on the 4 different types of offers, because that's going to really be influential in how you set yourself up for success and scale for next year. But look at that, and maybe you're thinking, I need to experiment with my gateway offers. I don't entirely know what's going to land. I'm not quite sure yet exactly what it's going to be. Maybe I'm going to have 2 different variations, but I know that my signature offer, I want this many people. I'm going to do these launches. Great. Right. Start to frame that out. So you should end up with your strategic planning, an overarching strategic roadmap for the year. When you have that in place, that's going to give you clarity on who you need to hire. It's going to help you understand where you may have gaps in your systems. And there's a few things that you can do in this process that is going to simplify it wildly. But where you're going to have that roadmap directionally high level looking forward across the whole year, you should have a lot more clarity in what Q1 looks like. You are still not going to go to the nth level of detail in planning it out, because again, things move really quickly, things change really frequently. So you don't want to spend too much time planning something that's very likely to change, but you do want more clarity and more detail for Q1 than you would for future quarters, because that's going to help you really start to frame up what you need to do and how you need to hit the ground running going into next year. So this is what we're going to be doing in the one-day retreat on December 16th. We're going to be mapping out your strategic roadmap for the year. We're going to be getting really clear on what Q1 looks like for you. And we're going to be looking at what you need from a systems, from a structure, from a team perspective to support you. But how do you know what you actually need each quarter? There is a single number that when you understand this number, it simplifies absolutely every single thing that you do. It makes so much of what you do so much more predictable. It lets you know what experiments to run so you can figure out and get traction on what's working. It simplifies things down so much. It kind of blows my mind a little bit that most people do not use this. It's one of the signature things that I teach. And this is something that we're going to be not only doing together in the one-day retreat, but anyone who joins me for the retreat gets a bonus workshop on December 2nd as part of our Small Business Saturday specials, where you're going to pre-plan this to take into the retreat with you, but we're going to give you AI prompts and tools that you can use so that you can do this on the fly and do different scenario planning, which is going to be super, super helpful. But once you understand this number, it's going to help you have clarity on what to do, when you need to launch, how much you need to sell, how many sales calls you need if you do sales calls, or how many people you need to show up for your webinars if you do webinars. It dramatically simplifies every single thing that you do down. It's one of the core pieces of my lean scaling system that I teach that we're going to be doing together. And it helps you frame out your focus. Now, what is the other piece? So far we've talked about visionary planning and strategic planning. These may be things you've done in the past, maybe not in exactly the way that I just outlined, but they're probably things that you've done. I hope they're things that you've done, right? These are really critical and really key for being able to scale a business more simply and sustainably. But the other piece of this that's super important, it's part of my lean strategic planning framework, which is part of my lean scaling system, is just-in-time planning. If you have a lean or agile background, you're very familiar with this terminology. If not, it's something I want to introduce you to. So most small businesses waste a tremendous amount of time and money on things that never move forward. You pour a ton of time into things that you half create and never finish, so they never get released. You wasted the time not only on something that doesn't get implemented, but it's the opportunity cost of what you could have done instead. Other people waste a lot of time documenting things, planning things, doing all the work to get ready to do work that never happens. That's all waste. That's wasted time, and that's wasted money for the people that you paid to do that, or wasted opportunity cost of things they could have been doing with that time. And one of the big areas of waste when it comes to planning, again, is planning too much detail too far in advance, especially when you are in a period where you don't have a lot of predictability. And we are all in a period where there's not a lot of predictability. So what you do instead is just-in-time planning. And this is where, even as you set your 90-day strategic plans, which we're going to do together, we're going to look at your Q1, in which I recommend you do as well. You still want to have just-in-time planning cycles in place where you are doing more of your detailed planning every single month, and your monthly plans integrate the things that you're doing from more of an operational perspective. They integrate what you're doing from a marketing perspective and sales perspective, and they integrate what you're doing from a delivery perspective. It's important that your just-in-time planning is looking realistically at all of the facets of the business, because especially the smaller your team is, the more likely it is that you have few individuals wearing a lot of different hats. And those hats span everything from marketing, sales, operations, delivery, finance. You think of the different functions in your business and you have few people doing multiple things. Well, you have to make sure that when you're planning, you're accounting for and integrating those things. Otherwise, you frequently will end up missing things or overcommitting people, burning out your team, and not seeing the kind of results that you want. So your planning has to happen closer to when it's going to begin at a more detailed level. It needs to look holistically across those things. Again, this is a just-in-time planning framework, but you don't only do monthly, you also do check-ins every week or two, and even every day. We have practices within my business and that I implement with all my clients, that I teach everyone in our certifications, where there's a daily check-in to make sure that things are moving forward, nobody's stuck, things are able to keep going without losing an entire week, realizing that someone could have had a question answered on Monday that they sat on until the next weekly planning meeting, right? You don't want that. So you want daily check-ins every week or every 2 weeks, depending on the cycles that you do. You want to align on what are we laser focused on this week, and how does this take us towards the goals and the focus areas that we aligned on in our monthly plan. And then every month is where you want to get really clear on what is it that we're going to be doing. And that is all in support of what you've set for your 90-day plan. The key with just-in-time planning is it allows you to adapt on the fly. It allows you to very quickly pivot based on what you're learning. And it has the different communications and cadences built into it so that everyone is crystal clear on what's needed. Everyone knows what outcomes and results they're working towards. People have the ability to work with one another to get unstuck so things don't sit waiting. And so you do not have surprises. You always have insight into where things are and how things are moving forward. And so a really good plan as you look at next year is going to include a vision for what the ideal year would look like. It's going to include a strategic roadmap that's very high level, that's more directional, that's looking at a macro level at what you need to be focused on when to achieve the financial targets and the big goals that you've set for the year. And then you want a regular cadence in place for your just-in-time planning, where you're looking at things monthly, weekly, and having these daily touch points and check-ins, even if they're just over Slack, which is what we do internally in my team, so that everything keeps moving forward, so that you have insight into where everything is, so everyone's on the same page, and so you don't have surprises. You're able to make whatever refinements are needed to continuously hit your financial targets and your goals, while shifting with market conditions as they continue to shift as we move into next year. So fun little fact for you, what I just outlined for you, yes, that is how you want to approach planning going into 2026. Yes, that is the type of planning that is necessary in today's market. But the fun fact is, this is how I teach planning. This is how I do planning. This is how I've always done planning. That I just outlined for you at a very high level is my lean strategic planning framework. That is what you are going to find in your 90-day lean out planner. That is what you are going to learn and implement inside the 1-day strategic planning retreat coming up on December 16th. That is what you are going to learn and be certified and licensed to do with your clients when you go through our certification and licensing program. There's a lot more to it. There's a lot of nuance in it. There's a lot of considerations, a lot of things that helps you get the business better results with less waste, with less overworking, without burnout, and really in ways where scaling becomes simple and sustainable, which is what this is all about. So if you would like to join me for the 1-day live retreat, which I would love to have you there on December 16th, you can find the link down below in the show notes. And when you join right now, before the end of the month, as part of our Small Business Saturday special, you get access to that bonus workshop to map out what that one number is that simplifies everything down, and get access to the AI tools that will help you do some scenario planning and be able to continue to utilize that in a really supportive way all year long. And to add some extra icing to the already really delicious cake, you also get access to an entire year inside the Soul Collective, where you have those AI implementation labs every single month. You have strategic leadership, interactive sessions with me every single month, and you have an incredible community of your peers, as well as our signature positioning framework that helps you really stand out and get clear on what your unique value prop is, put in place the language, the positioning, and the messaging that's going to help differentiate you from others who do something similar, or make it really clear to those who are making buying decisions why right now, like right this second, is why they need what you do and why they should not wait and should not delay. We have built all of that in to a ridiculous price as part of our Small Business Saturday specials. I know right now businesses are in a wild and weird and wacky place. So I am trying to give you as much support from myself and from my team as possible. If you are not yet in a place where you'd like to join our certification programs or license the lean scaling system, if you want to learn more about that, again, you can always put time on my calendar, strategicopsinstitute.com/consult. Happy to talk through it. And if you do decide that the certification and licensing is the right path for you, we include everything in it. You get access to the retreat, you get access to Soul Collective, you get access to the bonus workshop, you get it all. So those are some of our Small Business Saturday specials. I would love to have you check them out. You'll find a link in the show notes to our Small Business Saturday specials that has everything in there summarized for you, as well as the special pricing. I would absolutely love to spend the day with you planning out a wildly successful 2026, and then spend the entire year with you all year long, working through questions and pivots and things that come up, as they inevitably will. And if this does not speak to you, I would encourage you to find someone to work with to go ahead and develop your roadmap for next year, and to get really clear on what you need to do to hit those financial targets that you have, to achieve the goals that you have, and to be able to do it without overworking yourself, without overworking your team, and being able to end the year in a place where you feel so good about the impact you were able to make. You feel good about the profit you were able to keep in your business. You feel good about where you put your time and who you put your time with, and where you have the clarity that you need to really hit the ground running to make all that possible next year. I hope you got a lot of value out of this breakdown of visionary planning and strategic planning and just-in-time planning. And I will see you again next week. Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Simplify to Scale. If you'd like to take things further, I invite you to join me for my Scale Smarter, Not Harder interactive workshop. Head to strategicopsinstitute.com/scale smarter to get registered. Not only will we dive into what might be keeping you trapped in the day-to-day, but you'll have the opportunity to ask me your questions live. If you got value out of today's episode, I'd love if you'd take a moment and rate and review the show so more businesses can learn to scale more simply and sustainably. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and I'll see you again next week.